once the experts spell that out for us, then it's just a matter of us reading the rules and following it carefully. I was really starting to buy into a lot of what Pierre Poilievre has been talking about recently. He's saying that Justin Trudeau's spending is perhaps causing inflation, and he's been talking a lot about freedom as well, and how he wants to make Canada the freest country in the world. Now, that was until I read this CBC political analysis that explains that Pierre Poilievre is wrong. The CBC talked to two economics experts, one from University of Waterloo, the other from the University of Calgary. They don't mention any other economists though, and that's probably because all economists probably agree. The point is they've talked to the experts have looked into it, and Pierre Poilievre is wrong when he says that government spending is causing inflation. They've talked to the experts, and that settles it. And I think it's great that we have the CBC who's willing to do the hard work to dig up all these experts and find out what they have to say, and then tell us what's right and wrong when it comes to a politician telling us something that may or may not be true. If it wasn't for the CBC, there's people who could actually get caught up in Poilievre's rhetoric, and they might start believing that Canada could be a freer place. They might start believing that there are other ways to manage the economy that don't include tons of government spending. In a worst case scenario, I mean, people could start voting for him, and I know it's crazy, but he could maybe even become the Prime Minister, and how terrible would that be? I mean, let's be real. Poilievre does have some pretty out there ideas. He wants to make Canada the freest country in the world? Really? Haven't we had enough talk about freedom? We had those crazy truckers in Ottawa waving their flags. I mean, do we really want those people exercising their freedom? They've got these fringe ideas. I mean, sure, it's fine to talk about freedom and to wave flags, but have you ever really thought about what that would mean if we actually did that? I mean, people would have to start thinking more for themselves and make their own decisions, and perhaps more worryingly, they'd have to start taking more accountability for the outcomes of those decisions. What would it be like if there was more freedom during the pandemic? It would be chaos. You'd have like some people wearing masks, other people not wearing masks, some people getting vaccinated, other people not getting vaccinated, some small businesses staying open and serving customers while others might think it better to shut down. It would be chaos. You'd have all kinds of people doing different things. I mean, sure, I guess they'd be looking at the same data and the same information, but they might weigh it differently and take different courses of action depending on what they think is best for themselves and their families. And all that thinking for yourself, that gets stressful because one just doesn't know what's going to happen in the future. I think it would be better if we just assigned a number of experts who could look at the data and come down with some sort of consensus and tell us what we're to do about it. And they could tell us all the behavior that we need to do to keep ourselves safe, and then all kinds of other behavior that we can't do. And then once the experts spell that out for us, then it's just a matter of us reading the rules and following it carefully. We'd have an orderly world and people would know what to do. And in the CBC analysis, these experts tell us that things like economies are complex things. I mean, just because the government at every level shut down the economy for months and months on end, why would we think that that has any impact whatsoever on the economy at large? Economies are complex things. You know what's not complex though? New viruses, pharmaceuticals, and the human body. No, those are straightforward, and that's why we can trust our experts when they say that something is safe and effective. I mean, we can take that to the bank. Economies, governments printing money, no, that's all too complex for us to figure out. I mean, at least that's what the experts tell us. And I want to thank the CBC for doing this in-depth analysis. It's really helpful. We need an institution like CBC to get the experts and determine whether or not what that politician said was right. Whenever a politician stands at a podium and says some stuff, we got to question whether or not what they're saying is true, because I'm not sure if you've noticed, but sometimes politicians have different agendas and they're not always being straight with us. If Poilievre is talking about how government spending can cause inflation, I mean, we need to look into that and figure out whether he's right. Just like when Justin Trudeau stood at a podium and warned us about the fringe minority with unacceptable views. If you were just to look at some of the videos going around the internet, seeing the kids playing on the bouncy castles, people feeding one another, playing street hockey, I mean, if you weren't careful, you might begin to start thinking that some of these people might actually be reasonable. But thankfully, the CBC stepped in, They did an analysis, and they confirmed with their experts that these protesters in Ottawa were extremists and probably funded by foreign agents.
Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
The point is, we can't trust our politicians all the time. But who we can trust is the state-run media, like the CBC. They stand apart from any chance of being corrupted or influenced by politics, so we can look to them as a beacon of truth. Because really, if you think about it, a state-run media organization like CBC, what do they have to gain by being biased?
If we want significant community level protection, you're going to need to vaccinate way more people.
And medical experts say we can't stop now.
With data still coming in, experts say there is some reason.
It's not just about getting a vaccine, it's about getting the shot they want.
We're in Omicron era now, and it's very clear that 3 doses is better than 2.
And while targeted health measures make sense, experts say getting rid of them all does not.
I think that we need to try to bring the public along with us on this sort of epidemiological ride.
To end this global pandemic, experts say
I would like to see a greater sense of urgency from coast to coast, getting 3rd doses into as many eligible arms as possible.
This expert has crunched the numbers.
So what doctors and experts are saying is that they understand people wanting to gather. Of course, there are not many restrictions left.
we know vaccines and masks offer strong protection without lockdowns. But experts say people need to understand this virus keeps changing, and so does our immunity to it. Jeffrey Siegel is an air quality expert.
For now, experts say one thing consumers can do.
We have, of course, healthcare experts, healthcare workers who are burnt out, who are tired. The pressure on the healthcare system, of course, is still great.
But experts insist countries must support long-term production.
Earlier, we spoke with epidemiologist Dr. Christopher Labos, and he said the speed at which Omicron is spreading across Canada is surprising, even to medical experts.
Scientists warned us if countries didn't share vaccines with others in need, the virus would continue spreading.
Let us look at the latest on the battle for Ukraine. An expert military perspective for you this morning. He is retired general. He was the chief of